It is 4 p.m. September 29th, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting of the Economic Development Council to order. Blanca, if we can start off with a roll call, I'd appreciate it.
Yes. So we have Hiren Govin, President.
Present.
Roland Gomez, Vice President.
Present.
Daniel Dan Diaz, Secretary.
He's on mute.
On mute. Present, sorry guys.
Yeah. Aaron Ronnie Rivera, Treasurer.
Present.
Veronica Gonzalez, Director.
Present.
Sabrina Walker Hernandez.
Present.
Raul Resendez, Director.
Present.
We have quorum.
Welcome, everybody. Hope you're doing well today. Blanca, can you certify public notice, please?
Yes, notice was posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act on September 25th at 9:15 a.m.
Do we have anybody for public comments today?
We have not received any requests for public comments.
All right. Then Omar, do I need to open and close or just?
No, you can, if there are no public comments, and maybe Blanca, you just want to call out now if there are members of the public that would like to speak, they can do so.
Okay. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak now?
And if that's not the case, we can just move on to the next agenda item.
All right, fair enough. So close public comments and move on to the regular agenda items. Consider the August 25th board meeting minutes and September 17th special board meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I make a motion to approve.
A second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your right hands.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item B, report on our fiscal year end 2020 budget. Brian or Ron, I'm not sure if Blanca is going to field that one.
Mr. Christian Villarreal is on here.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Everyone hear me? Good. Okay. So historically, when I had worked with in the past with Edinburg Economic Development Corporation, management has typically amended the budget so that way there could be a close, approximated, balanced budget before the year ends. And that way it passes the smell test with like auditors and the public as well. So we're going to do that as well. And basically the fiscal year budget that we're going to present to you that we wish for you to approve is almost basically actual. And with all the turnover in management from the beginning of the year to now, I think it's best that we can only do that. It's been a very kind of a bit of a light year anyway. We just basically been spending money on things that are required, basic overhead, and some of the incentives that we've already been agreed upon to do from the beginning of the year and that were approved from prior year. So if we can kind of skip over to the page, what we have here is an estimated budget statement of cash receipts, disbursements, and operating cash balances through the fiscal year ended September 30, 2020. And you're going to see a first column and a second column that's kind of shaded in gray. It'll say end of year budget 9/25/2020. And basically, this is basically like actual and a little bit of what we think that we're going to spend before the year ends. Total revenues that we're going to be budgeted to collect this year are $8,201,925. You'll see the half-cent sales tax revenue of $6.4 million is our biggest prize up there. Interest on investments, which wasn't really originally budgeted, The $132,000 was collected from Techstar, Greater State Bank, et cetera. Lease payments, better than we originally anticipated in collection. Sale of property, that was just kind of a reimbursement on closing fees from a sale of property in prior years. And then, of course, transfer out interest in restricted account. This is interest that remains in the restricted accounts, such as the Techstar accounts. And then money that's transferred in from the Techstar accounts, $1.6 million, which kind of reimburses ourselves for the North Park project at Dula, et cetera, bond projects for 2019. So you'll see there that $8.2 million that we collected into the operating bank account. Okay? I also want to go back and say that this is a budget based on our operating cash flow. Okay, so $8.2 million is budgeted to be collected. Disbursements, personnel expenses, $270,000 cash outflow, as we had originally budgeted for $480,000. You're going to see a lot of the budgeted expenses are going to kind of go down a little bit. Then we got operating expenses. If you go to the next page, you'll see that the total is on the very top line of the second page. $90,000 when we had originally budgeted for $148,000. Maintenance expense, $45,719. Marketing expense, $200,000, which is half of what we originally budgeted for. Contractual services, $111,000 when we originally budgeted for $740,000. Developmental expenditures, they're going to be like incentives and capital improvements. You'll see that we $676,000 when we had budget for $1.8 million. And then you've got your capital outlay, which is going to be like purchase of property, the Bicentennial Park, and then the bond projects. You'll see that this is where we had kind of an increase there of $3 million. I think the North Park project was rapidly growing and improving there. And then, of course, we had that Bicentennial Park that wasn't in the original budgeted plans. And then, of course, you got your debt service, $2.9 million. That's pretty much a constant number that you're going to see there. So we have a net increase in cash that we plan to have of $862,000 for the fiscal year 20, and with an ending operating cash of $5.5 million. Any questions about the estimated budget or the budget for fiscal year 20?
Hey, Chris, I do. This is Raul. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, Chris, just a quick question on the capital outlay. Almost 1.5 million more, well, in excess of 1.5 million more.
Yes.
That the spectrum is from, 500,000 allocated, 2.1 spent, particularly that project. What happened? Is that?
I think just the North Park project just kind of took off. So as a matter of fact, I think that project is almost complete, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Blanca, where are we at with that?
Yes, that project is complete.
But did we commit to 500,000 and then they came back and asked for more, or we rebuilt it?
I don't know the answer to that, but I just know that project just kind of took off. It just kind of sped up real quickly, and then I think it was supposed to be spread out over maybe 1 or 2 years, 2 or 3 years, but it just kind of finished up in this year one.
I asked that question, and Blanca, Brian, and Ron had gotten me the answer. What happened was the Bicentennial Park was accidentally coded differently, so it's showing up as a separate line item. If we look at the second one, so that's $525,000, and then the overages from the North Park and both were approved by previous boards. We had all the money had already been spent and paid for, so it's just showing up in a more detailed, cleaned up version at the end of the year.
It may have been approved, but it wasn't approved in the budget.
Correct. Yeah, correct. So it was amendments to the previous budget, and so Blanca made it nice and neat for us, basically, is what it is.
Yeah, but I would like it that on the bicentennial project, the previous board had approved all the construction and when we reviewed it, we realized the lighting wasn't touched and there was dark spots in the baseball fields. So we upgraded the lights. The parking lot was darkened, didn't have lights there. We added lights there. Just a lot of stuff that we kind of upgraded, and that we had the money at the time. And so that's one of the reasons for the increase in cost. Do you remember anything else, Roland, that we did on the north? I don't remember what we did on the north part.
No, on Bicentennial, it was just the lights. I know we were going to be going out for separate bids on the parking lot lights. But on Bicentennial, yeah, it was just the actual field lights.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to be talking about the fiscal year 21 budget. And you might see a more wider spectrum type view of our plans going forward. So it might give you a better picture of what's going on.
So are you saying that the 525,000 is covering past lights that were approved and then future improvements over the next year? Or is it just prior expenses that 525,000 makes up for Bicentennial?
It's prior expenses. So the money was spent in 2020, and the budget amendments were approved in 2020. So it doesn't show from the beginning budget, but it was coded differently. Correct me if I'm wrong, Blanca. It was accidentally coded for North Park, and Blanca corrected it to it's actually Bicentennial Park for that one.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
no, I understand, but Bicentennial is the 525,000, and then the North Park though was budgeted at 500,000 and was 2.1 million, which is a very big significant difference. So what was and I know they said it took off and everything's completed, but what did that consist of, that additional 1.5 million, 1.6?
I think it's just the completion of the project. I think ultimately that project was going to be approximately that much. So you have to keep in mind that we collected about almost $10 million worth of bond proceeds in fiscal year 19. So those bond proceeds are going to cover the North Park project, the Atula, the Resource Center, and I believe there's one other project too. I think the Learning Center, or I forget what it was called, Capable Kids. So I think you're not going to see the North Park project in future budgets. It's going to be complete. So the North Park is an element of the 2019 bond proceeds.
So Chris, somewhere, whether it's in 2019, the board, there was a $2.1 million allocation for this approved?
I don't know if it was that exact amount or not, but
I think I can speak to that as well. So I think at the beginning of the year, only 500,000 was supposed to be completed of the project. So they budgeted 500,000, but the project ended up being 100% completed, and the total amount came out to being 2.1. And I believe that 2.1 is 600,000 over budget, if I'm not mistaken, from the original. And that should show on the next breakout. Am I explaining that correctly, Blanca?
Yes.
That's correct. And to go back to one of Ms. Gonzalez's question on the 525,832, so that one is reconciled and closed out. So that was to fund that amount. So we won't see that in previous years. That's not connected to another project. So that bicentennial, that was allocated now, cleared out, and complete. And yeah, Mr. Govin was correct that for whatever reason, they didn't apply 100% of the budget for the North Park project, most probably assuming that that project would be over the life of certain fiscal years, but that one was completely complete. But it was a bit over budget, which we'll address in the fiscal year 21 budget.
Okay, thank you. That helps to know that. So basically, you just might have been 3 years, but all spent in 1 year.
Yes.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Mr. Villarreal? No. All right. Do we need to entertain a motion or anything, Omar? Is this just a review?
No, there's no action required. It's just a report.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Mr. Villarreal. I appreciate your time.
You want me to year 21 budget?
Yes, please. I guess we need to consider the agenda item C, the 2019 audit engagement letter amendment. Blanca, I believe that the audit's not going to be completed in time, so we need to do two things, I believe, correct?
Yes, we're requesting a 30-day extension to complete the 2019 audit. We're very close, but we just need a couple more items to work with the banks and a couple more items in-house to get to the auditors to complete the 2019 audit for the EDC.
Does anybody have any, questions or discussions on that? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the amendment so we can complete the audit.
Make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Please raise your right hand.
Aye.
Any opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to agenda item D, consider staffing services and lease agreement for fiscal year 2020 date amendment. So what happened here is that we had previously approved the staffing amendment on the other one to end in October. So we need to amend it so it ends basically tomorrow and would take over on day one of the new fiscal year. So we'd ending the old contract and then we'll start the new one. So we'll be on course for full fiscal year to fiscal year. I'll entertain a motion to approve the amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye, or please raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to consider and approve the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget, staffing services, lease agreement, and work plan.
So I think staff is we're gonna sort of tag team on this one.
Okay.
And Blanca, if you can go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah, I think it moved. 1 second. Bear with me here. Oh. Do you guys see that? No, right?
No.
It flickered a few times on this, Blanca.
Okay.
Yeah, previously.
1 second. I think I need to move this one over here. And then,
If you want me to bring it up too, Blanca, just let me know.
okay. I don't know why, because I'm sharing my screen, but it doesn't come up the way I want it. Sorry about that.
Here, hang on.
There you go.
Do you guys see that?
It looks like a PDF, I mean a PowerPoint.
Yeah, I think that should work, Blanca. That should be fine. It's in
Okay.
you're in a different PowerPoint view mode, but I think that should be fine. Okay, so we're going to do this all in sort of one presentation here, and Chair, we can kind of go through the whole thing. It's only about 15 slides. This is going to be a very long presentation, but we can either do the budget and stop there and then kind of tackle that, or I can just we can go through the whole thing. I'd probably recommend just going through the whole thing and just so you can see the budget and work plan together, it might make more sense that way.
Works for me.
Okay. So, Ron, I don't know if you're, if you want to cover, sort of the key goals from 2020. Blanca, if you could advance it so we could see the 2020. Yeah. Ron, I don't know if you want to do this, but I'm happy to do it too.
Sure. I think I'll just start by saying that we feel much better on our side in terms of the transition. I think all of us were looking forward to the start of the fiscal year because I think we really do just count on the last few months as a transitional month. We really think that going into October 1 will put us kind of on the activity mode. So, there was little kinks here and there, but we feel really good about where we're at. Obviously, being staffed is very, very important. But, we're still refining this process, but we have found a lot of efficiency, and that's what this was all about. We're going to get into the staff services agreement, and I know Brian and Blanca have done some research. We compared to other organizations, so we'll kind of dive in as we get to those points. But, Brian, why don't you do the first slide, and then we'll kind of take it through there.
Yeah. Blanca, why don't you flip over to the progress report? Let's just go through just to frame this. And, I think everybody should feel pretty good about the progress that's been made in the last few months. So I just want to cover some highlights really quickly. Obviously we've got a new board appointed with 7 members. We went through the Sales Tax Corporation training earlier this month from TEDC, which I thought went really well. We got some good feedback from the board members and other people who have actually viewed that since. So I feel like that was that was an important thing for the board to take on. We've done a new set of bylaws that require council approval of EDC actions. We think that will help with communication. It will help with oversights and just make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of what we're trying to do in economic development here. The board adopted the city purchasing policies and procedures. So we're all again kind of on the same page with how procurement should look under the city guidelines. And then finally, the EDC City Staffing Services and Lease Agreement, the first version for FY20 was approved. Blanca, if you can advance that. Progress report on the projects and some of the other initiatives. North Park, as we just covered, North Park was completed. That was one of the 4 2019 bonds financed projects, and the property was donated to the city.
Brian,
Sure.
I'll chime in real quick on North Park just to say that the city has established a requirement for public posting before naming. So we are currently in that process. The city council will finalize the name of that park at the October 20th city council meeting. After its official name, we'll order the sign, whatever that official name ends up to be. And then most likely either at the very end of October or early part of November, once we get that sign in, we'll go ahead and schedule a ribbon cutting for obviously EDC and the city to participate in that. So just kind of want to give an update of that. It's soft opened right now, so that park is functional. It's a nice addition to that area. But again, just if you're following along, we need to finalize the naming to that park. And then again, expect an invitation to a ribbon cutting either very late October or most likely the first week or so of November.
And were they going to keep it North Park or?
So what happens is we publish the notice for a naming, and then on October 20th at the city council meeting, that is when the public hearing is held and finalized for the final part of the name. So the motion made by council included the name North Park as the park, and there was some discussion as far as, we have other locations of the South Park, things like that, but it can still be changed. So the public is invited, and obviously EDC, anybody who wants to speak to the naming of that park at the October 20th, that's the public hearing date to finalize that process.
So the notice that was published online in a newspaper?
I know it has two processes. It is mailed to a surrounding area of a geographical area. I'm not sure, Omar, I don't know if you know exactly the area that it's, there's a radius, a required radius, and then it's published in the newspaper as well.
And then, we had discussed a recommendation from the EDC board. And so at that council meeting, that would be the appropriate time to offer that recommendation if you still want to do that.
And would I need to go there, or a board member, or would one of you do that recommendation for us?
I don't know, Ron. What do you think? Would it be appropriate for somebody to speak during public comment, or can staff just communicate the suggestion?
We could bring that forth, but quite honestly, it would probably have more significant value if a member of the EDC spoke at that public hearing.
That'd be great.
But we're more than happy to pass along this recommendation.
Sabrina, if you would like to go, and speak, I know that the Boys and Girls Club is near and dear to your heart as well, for Maria A. Flores.
Yeah. So October the 20th.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. October 20th at 6 p.m. At this point, that meeting looks like it might be in person, but there will be a phone-in option for public comment and public hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
So just to finish up the progress report, that last bullet there, I'll follow that under transparency. Transparency is a big emphasis this year, and it's listed on the priority slide a few slides ago, and I think we made some good progress getting that inventory of properties and projects together, and then posting it on the website available for public access. So I think that's us fulfilling a commitment I think we've made about how we're going to conduct business under the EDC, and so I'm glad and I'm thankful to the board for your support in doing that. So any questions about the progress report before I turn this over to Blanca to cover the budget? Okay, Blanca, take it away.
I'd mute myself first. All right, so moving on to the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021. I just want to thank the board members that met with me to discuss and provide feedback and questions. All the questions were very helpful to solidify our budget moving forward. A couple of the highlights, as you can see, the total budget is $10.8 million, up 31% from the fiscal 2020 proposed budget. So that's good. A part of the 10.8 million is the bond projects monies from that we talked about previously that are for Capable Kids, the Workforce Center, and El Dule projects. 6.5 million in projected sales tax revenue, no change from fiscal year 2020. As you can see, or you saw, we did have around $6.4 million in sales tax for fiscal year 2020. 1 million.
Blanca, can I speak to that real quick?
Yeah.
Just for some additional context. So I just want the board members to know that on the city side as well, sales tax had grown approximately 5% every year for, about the last 20 or plus years. We've had good growth, but obviously with the pandemic, we took a conservative look at things, and we are projecting both at the city level and at the EDC level basically no change from fiscal year 20. It's the first time we've actually projected a flat growth. There's a couple indicators that we've been really looking at very carefully to determine. There's a lot of to be determined here. Some of those indicators are starting to actually fulfill themselves, which is not a good sign. So I just want everybody cognizant of the fact that we're still in an extremely vulnerable sales tax year. I think fiscal year 21, it's going to prove to be challenging, probably even more so challenging than fiscal year 20, mostly because the start of fiscal year 20 was so strong, it was able to sustain kind of that flat. But we're essentially going to go into 21 not at a deficit, but at a vulnerable stance. So I just want everybody to look at that. And there's been, I've looked at certain middle of kind of our sales tax, and things like movie theaters, things like JCPenney. Those are really good indicators. And quite honestly, the movie theaters are just kind of limping in right now. And JCPenney has just recently shut their doors, which was a big indicator for us. So again, there's definitely vulnerability to our projections for sales tax. Just want to make that point.
Yeah, Ron, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the big questions I had for Blanca when we went over the budget. Because 52% of our budget is that projected 6.5 million in sales tax. And as we know, COVID shut down a lot of businesses, and like you said, JCPenney, the movie theaters. So I was questioning, like, man, how do we come up with that number with such an unknown territory we're in right now?
Yeah, Dan, we looked at this a lot on the city side. And the good news about the sales tax is that the majority of our strongest contributors are still doing they're still doing very strong. If anything, actually, they're doing better. The Walmarts, the Lowe's, the H-E-B's, they are performing very, very strong. And in contrast to that, the really small mom and pops, the very, very small ones that are still, operating at 100%, from a big picture, they make up a really small percentage of the total allocation. So you do have some balance there. So that's why I kind of point to the middle, which are things like the movie theater, JCPenney, Ross, Burlington. Those are middle good indicators for us. And JCPenney, like I said, that one did concern me a little bit, but we're gonna try to get active to see what we can do, get some research done, and see if we can fill that building with something else.
Thank you.
When exactly did JCPenney close?
So we never received official notice. I just happened to see it last Saturday, and we've been tracking it, and the doors are closed. So we're still trying to get some information formally.
Okay.
But as we know, really across all the stores, they have not been performing well. Ironically, the JCPenney's in the Rio Grande Valley were some of their strongest across their whole network of stores. But the fact that McAllen closed and Edinburg closed, which were their two highest performing JCPenney's, that's a pretty strong indicator JCPenney's not doing too well.
So it might have been like a brand perspective, not a location perspective, maybe?
Yeah, I think it was sweeping.
Okay.
I think I read somewhere that Simon Properties was in the process of buying all JCPenney's. The people that own the mall. So hopefully that'll go through. I think they were having to get approved by the SEC board or something like that.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, we're still in the midst of doing some research on JCPenney. We just happened to stumble upon it.
If I could interject really quickly.
Yes,
While the screen share function is up, it's the speaker does not always pop up. So if you could identify yourself before you make a comment while the screen share function is up.
Here and go, Ben. Thank you, Omar. Does anybody else have any more comments?
Here, and this is Ron, and I just interjected there on Blanca, but I think she needs to pick back up from those last two bullets.
Okay.
Hey, Ron, this is Raul. One of the things that you see in North Texas is Google going into JCPenney's and Dillard's and malls and turning them into distribution centers for their warehousing. Has the city looked at that in terms of contacting Google? Or can we, what's the process there? Because that is happening throughout the country.
Sure. Yeah, I've personally been watching that trend, and quite honestly, up until JCPenney, we have not really had any large retail vacant space available. So this is our first opportunity. So we're gonna number one, since it just happened, we need to get some research and see if this is just a temporary shutdown, or is this a permanent shutdown? And then obviously get aggressive to seeing who we can fill that. But logistics right now are very strong because of online sales. So yes, Amazon and all the kind of distributors are looking at vacant retail spaces to convert those. I think we got to do a couple more bit of research, but then, once we have a strategy, I think we do need to let the logistics companies know that we're interested.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Raul. This is Hiran. I know we got a large agenda, so I'm going to redirect it back to Blanca if y'all don't mind.
Thank you, Chair. This is Blanca. Moving on to the next bullet point. So we have $1 million for administrative services under the City DC Staffing and Lease Agreement. When preparing the budget, we did notice that last year they had about $1.2 million for operations. So we were able to trim the $200,000 down to $1 million. So I think that was pretty good. $4,139,638 for the 2019 bonds projects. And that's El Tule for the Tule Center, Resource Center, and the Capable Kids Park. And this is reflected in that $10.8 million budget that you will see here. So the continuation, we have $3.2 million in debt service payments. That's 50% debt service to sales tax revenue ratio. That's projected. We've talked about the debt service payments that we've had before and moving on like in the next couple of years. So that's evident in our budget. It's very clear. The $1.2 million in incentive commitments. Staff is recommending no new incentives budgeted for fiscal year 2021 until fiscal outlook is clear and an incentive policy is adopted. $5.3 million in unrestricted cash at the end of the year projected. So that's very good. That's always good to know that we have some cushion there towards the end of the year. Hopefully we either maintain it or grow it.
And just Blanca, real quick in terms of housekeeping on the agenda item cover page, a lot of this that's where we took it from. So a lot of it is explained in a little more detail on there.
And on the incentives side, I know that we don't have any funds in there currently, but with the extra in cash, I was hoping we could maybe move 500,000 into there and have it budgeted so we at least have something in the budget for incentives, whether we use them or don't use them, so the budget can look a little bit, for us to have the funds available if and when we need them.
Chair, if you're open to it, can I recommend, I think there's maybe 2 more budget slides. And can we go through all the budget slides and then start discussing, potential changes we might want to make? Would that be okay?
That's fair.
Okay. Yeah, Blanca, why don't you finish up these 2 just so everybody understands the comparison for the admin services and then the project budget.
Okay. Yes. No, hi everyone. Blanca again. So this is a breakdown of the administrative services, the $1 million. I did make a note for the administrative services payment for fiscal year 20, the $126,000. That's carried over because we're making that payment in October. But for the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget, it is $1 million. And we did a little homework, Brian and myself and Ron, to compare and contrast the personnel administration expenses across type A EDCs across Texas. And you can see the list here, and Edinburg is 15% of their operating expenses of the total sales tax from different compared to different communities, as you can see here. Brian, I don't know if you want to add a little bit more to that.
Yeah. This is Brian. Just quickly, what I did on this is I looked at cities of roughly similar size, all Type A corporations, and where it made sense in terms of positioning within kind of a metropolitan area, and grab a handful, including a couple in the valley, just so you all can kind of get a sense of what the distribution among what I would consider probably benchmark EDCs looks like for the admin agreement. And yeah, we are right about the average. I think the average for this benchmark is about 16%. So we are right at the average. Considerably lower than places like Harlingen and kind of in range of Brownsville. So I feel pretty good about where this ended up here.
Questions? Moving on. These are the projects we have committed for the fiscal year 2021. Some of them are carrying over from 2015 all the way to 2019. And then we have our bond projects as well. As you can see, North Park is no longer, it's zeroed out as it was completed this month. And moving forward, we'll be working on El Tule, the Resource Center, and Capable Kids to start construction, hopefully for El Tule and Resource. El Tule and Capable Kids. And then we have our debt service in the bottom for Ebony Hills, Parks and Rec, the Santana refund bond, the Arena bond shortage, and the new Series 2019 bonds for fiscal year 2021. Questions?
I do. This is Ron. I do quickly want to point out that the bond project budgets are not 100% of the budgets. Those are just the budget amounts reflected that are projected to be expended during this fiscal year. Some of those have balances going into 2022.
Plan.
All right. This is Brian again. Hey, why don't we? I think I've changed my mind. Why don't we stop? And I don't know, Chair, if you want to make your comments now about the budget.
Yes. Sorry about that. So like I was saying, with the extra that we have in the cash reserves, moving and adding 500,000 to the incentives, just so we have it on the budget. To have incentives in there, and then if we use them or not, it's a different story there. But I would like to see something that we have in there for some kind of incentives. I don't know if anybody.
I agree with you, Darren. I mean, I think that's one of the purposes of the EDC is to be able to draw new businesses and new industry, and we got to have some money for incentives, whether we use it or not. I mean, I think the fact that these great, we've gotten projects that have been inherited and they're good projects, but we don't want to not have any potential new projects for the coming year.
The one thing to keep in mind on top of that is that obviously we have responsibly budgeted those, and this is Ron again, but we've responsibly budgeted those that we had previous agreements that have current agreements. We do know that through the course of the fiscal year, not all those agreements will materialize due to compliance issues. So we do know that a portion of that balance should be made available for the same line item, which is incentives. It's almost inevitable that is the case.
If that happens, let's say we add the 500,000 now, and some of those things come to fruition, Ron, can we make the adjustments then?
Yeah, you can always do, generally a budget is adjusted formally at mid-year. You can technically do it at any point, but just to let all these activities materialize, generally you would do that at mid-year, so you can reconcile and all that. And that also allows you a good amount of time to develop the policy around incentives. But yes, you can shift back and forth as you wish among those.
So if we were to make the amendment now, add the 500,000, and let's say in 6 months, plus or minus March, we do a mid-year review, and then adjust it again accordingly based on what we think is going to pan out.
Yes, sir.
Do we need to make a motion or?
I have one more question. This is Veronica. My question is, will it hurt us to deplete the cash amount right now by moving 500,000 into incentives? Is there any, I guess, downside to doing that at this point?
Yeah, this is Brian. I'll jump in here. Well, so I'm not sure I would call it downside. There are just some things to consider, I guess. One is we've got a fairly significant unrestricted cash balance compared to our projected sales tax revenue. So, that I would put that on kind of the pro side of the argument, maybe for having a little cushion in there. Given the fiscal uncertainty about what's going to happen over this next year, that's probably an additional consideration. If there was a downturn in the projected or in the actual sales tax revenue, we would probably try to make that up out of the unrestricted cash before we look anywhere else, given how lean this budget is, especially on the program side. So that's another consideration. What Ron had mentioned about possibly some of the other commitments possibly being changed. That's, I guess, an additional consideration there. And, you could always, and then I guess there's one more. And Blanca, if I state this incorrectly, please jump in. But, there have been some, we have a very high debt service to sales tax revenue ratio compared to other EDCs. I think I noted on the agenda item cover page that we're at about 51%, I believe, and I think the average among the benchmark EDCs, the Type A's, is around 21%. So we have a significantly higher debt service ratio. Now, some people would say, well, I'm not worried about that because I would do that out of total operating ratio anyway, not just your sales tax revenue. So it just looks kind of artificially high. That's probably not the way I would suggest looking at it. I'd like to see us lower that. We can't really pay ahead on our debt service obligations, but what we can do is sort of sequester some of that into kind of a separate line item account. And, if the economy tanked, next year or the year after, then we would at least know that we would have, some padding there. So, I would, if I were you, I think I would probably take all those things into consideration and then decide how comfortable you are moving that 500K.
I think just to add to that a little bit, I look at things and we look at this collectively as terms of just indicators. And this is Ron again. When we looked at the administrative and staffing services, that's why we wanted to do that comparative analysis. And previous years, it was a bit on the high side. It was running generally over 20%. And when we found that a good baseline was right there at about 15%, we made modifications to get that in a healthy indicator. I think across all those indicators, our long-term goal is that every indicator we have is right in that healthy amount. And again, so kind of tagging what Brian said, when that 50% debt service does come in the range of 20 to 25%, then the health will be a little bit stronger. So
this is Daniel. So that debt service is I guess debt because of previous incentives that kind of went wrong. Is that what I'm understanding?
No, sir, Brian. It's not. The debt service is for those capital projects.
Okay.
There. The debt service. There is one very significant amount that we are accredited for, of course, on the Santana project. So I mean, you can look at that line item and look at sort of the distribution of the debt service. Santana is obviously a large one, but it's not it's not the majority by any means.
And I guess just echoing Hiram's I guess overall thinking of this, comparatively speaking to a city the size of Edinburg, what percentage of their budget is for incentives? Does anybody have that number?
I do, and if you will just give me a couple seconds, you can keep going, and then I'll jump back in as soon as I have it here.
And so, of course, where I'm going with that is, I think, I know we're in areas of uncertainty, but I think that our budget has to reflect a certain amount of incentives to be able to try and bring people in. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this board. I know now that we have to go before city council, but we have to be prepared to, offer somebody if they come in next week. Of course, I also say that knowing that we're gonna create our incentive plan, but I'm surprised it's not part of the budget.
Well, this is Raul. Brian and Ron, I guess the issue is the past behavior of decisions that were made, and that's why we're at that 51%. That's the issue, right?
That's one of the factors to consider. But, and I totally agree with the fact that any EDC, obviously, having an incentive budget is very important. But again, kind of going back to the fact that I think we're definitely going to have some of these commitments achieve non-compliance. I think we're gonna get that money back at some point through the year. But as of right now, there were previous commitments. We have to put placeholders for those. But there's a lot of compliance requirements to those commitments. So we just have to validate those. But we know within the next several months, not all of them will materialize. So if we choose to do an amendment to add some now, or kind of wait to see how those materialize, I think in either avenue, there's going to be a fairly healthy incentive budget.
So Mr. Diaz, I've got the answer to your question. So of those benchmark type A EDCs that using the same indicator, right? So share of sales tax revenue. The range is on the low end from 16% in Harlingen to 86% in Wichita Falls, and the average is 49%. So 40 on average, those benchmark type A EDCs, their incentives as a ratio of sales tax revenue is 49%.
Wow. And what's our ratio? Brian, this is Veronica, I'm sorry. What's our ratio?
Hang on 1 second. Let me calculate.
I think, again, just keeping them in mind that those are direct comparisons to type A, which fundamentally we are. However, those caveats, the fact that we have been kind of emphasizing those qualifying type B activities over the past year, really kind of put us in a unique type of hybrid. Till we kind of, so could we ever get to 86%, not without modifying those type B qualifiers. So I think we're going to have to make our own unique ratios or just completely move away from those other qualifying groups.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, so let's spend a second on that. So right now, if you look at the 1.252, we're at about 20% of sales tax revenue. But remember that most, exactly what Ron was just saying. And this is Brian. Sorry, I keep forgetting to introduce myself. Most of those other type A benchmarks don't do type B investments. So, if you look at the share of debt service and, the bond projects in 2019, those are all quality of life type projects that many of those other type A's aren't doing. So that does make, our EDC here a little bit unique when trying to do these benchmark comparisons.
I think moving forward, it would be a very healthy strategy to come up with indicators, not just total incentives, but okay, what percentage is for type A industry incentives, and what smaller percentage would be for qualifying type B. So if we kind of hit those benchmarks or markers, I think that would really help moving forward. I don't know if we're prepared to do that yet. But because we have so many of these type B projects coming up this fiscal year 21, but kind of moving forward, I think that's going to be where we want to get to.
Hey, Ron, as a guesstimation, what are you looking at when you look at the arena shortfall, the Santana, the new series bonds? What, are we looking at a 3 to 5 year kind of adjustment to get this cleaned up, in your opinion?
So those are, we do have projections. Blanca had done a real good job doing 5-year projections, and I actually, for our purposes, we actually looked at 10-year because of that exact thing. Santana still is obviously a complex structure, and we have some years. I'll let Brian maybe speak directly to that a little later, but the arena bond shortfall, when those bonds were originally done, it was always projected to be about 7 to 10 years of the 20 years to have that shortfall amount. So I know the word shortfall, draws attention, as it should, but that was essentially a projected shortfall. So that bond payment is $2.6 million annually. And again, when it was collectively done, collaboratively through the EDC and the city, they always knew that it was going to be about 7 to 10 years of a shortfall. The key to recovering from that shortfall goes back to those TER zones, and we have some opportunity there. So that's why it's kind of a double concern with JCPenney not producing sales tax, because that is in that TER zone. So the more healthy we are from those TER zone, the shorter that, or the smaller that shortfall becomes, and then vice versa.
Omar, this is a hearing. So do we need to make a motion to amend or not amend the budget, or can we just do that as a?
Right. So, this is Omar. Ultimately, the board's going to need to vote to adopt a budget. And so my recommendation would be to kind of gather whatever changes you want, and in the course of making the motion, name what those changes will be.
Okay. So then, for now, I guess we continue with Blanca's presentation, and at the end, when we make the motion, we would add the amendments then.
That would be my recommendation. I think it's probably the cleanest way.
Fair. Does anybody have any issues with that? Okay. Anybody have any more comments on the budget for now?
I just have one question. Raul just answered some of your questions. Some of those debt services, the first two are till 2024, and I know the Santana is till 2025, and then it doubles to 1.4. Like Ron said, the arena bond at 7 to 10 years. The new series bonds, I don't have the timeline for that. Can you tell me? New series 2019.
2019.
2019.
So the good news is that those would mature. So we will be done with those debt services when we do have the balloon of Santana. So over the course of 10 years, it does, it's kind of a stabilizing factor. There's not a lot of peaks and valleys. So as we reduce the 2019, that's when we get the balloon from the Santana.
Okay, awesome. And the only reason I have those answers, Raul, is because of the one-to-one I had with Blanca. We went item by item, and it was very, very informative.
Yes, thank you.
And then, I guess, anybody else have any more questions or comments before Blanca moves on? No, this is here, by the way, so I keep forgetting to announce myself as well. Blanca, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. This is Blanca. Moving forward to the work plan for fiscal year 2021. We have some projects that we're going to be working on, As we mentioned previously, Capable Kids Park will hopefully start construction by spring, later spring. El Tule Center also start construction by later in the spring. And the Resource Workforce Training Center develop a plan and submit funding proposal to the Economic Development Administration so we can start developing that. And then we have published contracts, performance metrics, and payments for incentivized projects on city's CIP dashboard. And that is, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, that's the dashboard that we shared about 2 meetings ago where our projects are going to be up, posted.
Yeah, if you all remember seeing the North Park project on the city's capital improvement project dashboard, it's a nice system. It wasn't really intended for what I think I want to use it for here, but it'll work. Right now we just have all of the projects and on that Google map that we mocked up. I would rather have a more complete presentation of not only the proposals and the contracts, but on compliance monitoring, on performance metrics of those contracts, so people can see how incentivized companies are performing according to what was promised in the contracts. So we can use the city's dashboard for that, and then bring it into the economic development side of the city's website, so it's available to people there. But again, I think it speaks to that emphasis on transparency this year and just establishing that expectation.
Guys, this is Dan. Could I have the address to those new projects I'd like to check them out. The area that it's going to be in.
Yes, I can send that. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, yes, this is Brian. Yes, we'll send a link out to the CIP dashboard so you all can get a sense of what that looks like.
Thank you.
And Dan, I don't know, I guess I'm assuming you haven't seen it yet, but these guys did a great job. It basically has a map of the city, shows all the projects. You can click on them, gives you data, completion.
I think we saw that. I think I saw something briefly the last
yeah. So
I'd like to see that.
So we have access to it basically 24/7. And correct me if I'm wrong, is it on our website and the public can view it at any time?
Yes, this is Brian. Yes, that the Google map that we showed you, I guess 2 meetings ago, is now posted for public access. It's publicly available. And then the city's capital improvement project dashboard is also for public review. And it's just imagine a more comprehensive kind of GIS based service. It's an Esri product, and it'll be a much nicer presentation of each one of these projects going forward. And so we'll be working with city staff here to leverage that. And I must point out yet another example of the excellent value the board is getting for administrative services agreements as a previously funded city benefit there.
Yeah, I agree. This is Dan. Brian, is that on the city website or on the EDC website?
Yeah, yes, the CIP dashboard is on the city. This is Brian. The CIP dashboard is on the city website. We'll distribute a link to it.
And do we have a link to that on our EDC website to access it so that people can see that also?
Not yet, but we will.
Awesome.
And then keep in mind that, and something we'll be talking about, is a project to consolidate the websites to make sure we have a better landing page.
So the EDC will be accessed through the City of Edinburg website?
Yeah, most likely we're going to do a consolidated, just a really good landing page where, and then it takes you to the city website with all the information. But yeah, nice. we definitely need website improvements, and that's one project that we definitely have planned.
Awesome, thank you.
This is here, and any more questions on this before Blanca continues?
This is Roland. Yes, I have a question. Who's spearheading these projects? Is it engineering?
What project specifically?
The
capital?
parks, the Capable Kids Park and the Altula Center.
Yes. So engineering, we're doing in-house project management, but because this is a reconciliation of several funding sources, I'm directly involved in all of these. So I'm kind of facilitating myself. But great. Yes, our city engineer is the official project manager.
Okay.
So we're doing it all in-house, and that'll keep the cost down too.
Great. Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
This is here. Anyone else? Blanca, please continue.
Thank you. This is Blanca. Moving forward to programs, that's what we were talking about a minute ago. We want to procure a digital marketing creative agency to develop a pitch package, including EDC web pages on city's website, marketing video, and presentation. We also want to implement a small business development program that addresses lessons learned from Spark and engages the network to stimulate new activities. And the last one is support city's comprehensive plan update, focusing on pedestrian activity, beautification of the downtown area. Questions?
This is here, and I know on Friday we have the comprehensive plan meeting. Do we have a presentation or something that that we want to focus on during that meeting? I'm not exactly sure what kind of forum it's going to be.
So we are the individual timeline agenda is going to be distributed tomorrow. I really pushed on them to decrease the time. So we're 8:30 to 2 o'clock now. It was originally scheduled from 8:30 to 4:30, and I just don't think adult attention spans are that great. So we did condense it. So we took out a lot of, we leaned it out. I really do think all 4 areas are applicable to the EDC, but we're going to give you the timeline so you can pop in and out virtually if you want to participate. But the first one is going to be housing and the data regarding the growth of the city. The second module is mobility and transportation. The third one is kind of master planning the city codes. And then the fourth one is EDC. Economic development. So, which is kind of a catch-all of the other ones. So, but we'll get that individual timeline out tomorrow. Again, it's on Friday. You can participate in person or virtually. And we're doing that individual timeline so people can pop in and out of topics as they choose.
This is Brian. I believe somebody from the planning staff reached out to everybody on the board, and you are all welcome. Okay, we'd like it if you could.
Ron, thank you for that. This is Veronica. Thank you for that clarification. I think that would be very helpful for those of us that, like I know at UTRGV, we'd love to participate in mobility and on, of course, economic development, master planning. So, and having that virtual option, I think is going to be really helpful as well for those who want to be able to pop in. So thank you.
Yeah, I had actually declined the meeting because I was like, I can't go out in public, so I declined it. But now the fact that there's virtual is something that I could potentially attend.
Yeah, we're working. We're gonna test the technology on doing kind of a hybrid where there'll be a small group in person, and we're gonna chime people in and out virtually. So.
This is here, and anybody have any more comments regarding the programs? Blanca.
Thank you. Moving forward to properties, we have here that we want to procure a real estate firm or firms to help board and staff manage portfolio, including sales, purchases, and leases.
This is Brian. I'll jump in here with just a little bit of context. And now that we've sort of been through a couple of proposed property transactions, right now I think everybody knows we've got Mark Hanna with Hanna Solutions representing the EDC's interest in the industrial park. It would be really helpful if we had a rep for all of the EDC properties instead of just the industrial park. The EDC's contract with him also expired, and we are now on kind of a month-to-month engagement. And so I think it would be a good time to, go out and find a firm or a set of firms to help us manage the portfolio comprehensively. It would help staff, and we also, we don't really have an in-house real estate attorney here at the city. So as we get into proposed transactions, we're going to need some help in that area. So I'd like to, if the board is willing, I'd like to prioritize this early. Maybe even next month if we can.
Is that a posting, Raul? Is that a post that can go out to realtors, local realtors? And would it be Edinburg realtors?
This is Brian. So my plan was to do probably an RFQ for this, and obviously we would want board input on the RFQ, and just knowing that we've adopted the city's procurement policies, so we will start there. And so I think Ron and I we'll kind of talk this over with Omar and come up with what we think would be a good approach, since this would be the first time we'd be doing this with the EDC board, and we'd come back to you on that.
This is here, and so would that look more like for lack of a better term, like you would put an attorney on retainer, we'd put like a real estate firm on a retainer, or how would?
I don't. So if I could have a perfect scenario, it would be an advisory firm that could handle both, attorney and realtor services. I don't know what kind of interest we would get if we went with that sort of solicitation. So we're gonna kind of think through this a little bit here, and we'll come back with kind of a recommended way to structure the RFQ and see what you all think.
That's fair. This is here. Sorry. Anybody else have any more questions or comments regarding that? Back to you, Blanca.
Thank you. Moving on to our next steps. Our fiscal year 2021 budget, work plan, and the city EDC staffing and lease agreement. We have to present that to the City Council for consideration at the meeting on October 6, 2020. That's next Tuesday. We will develop a marketing pitch package, hopefully with a firm, and also the real estate services. We will get back to you on that with comments and recommendations from the board, and then we'll work with the board closely to develop an incentive policy.
This is Brian. All this shows is sort of the recommended order, I think, of some of those program highlights we put in there, just in terms of what I've I guess experienced in the last couple of months about the sense of urgency. We really need to get on the marketing pitch package. We're at a significant disadvantage to other EDCs, kind of being in this sort of transition mode on that, and so I think that really needs to be first priority here out of the gate once we get through budget.
This is here. Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that there. Blanca, did you have more for presentation?
No, that concludes our presentation for this line item. If there are any other questions?
No. This is here and again. So, I was the one who made the recommendation, for adding incentives, and a few of y'all kind of concurred, but, thinking about it with what Ron was saying, JCPenney closing and, potential uncertainty, and maybe being able to amend this in 6 months or having to be the possibility of amending it, to reduce that 500 to 300,000, and so we had at least funds to create that incentive policy, and then mid-year we create some kind of, a new plan based on what happens with our current incentives. I don't know what the board thinks about that, or Brian.
This is Aaron here. I concur with you. I think that's a good idea to go for 300,000. At least we have something there instead of budget, because we don't want to be caught, kind of, so to speak, dead in the water and not be able to help a business or get somebody to open up or come into Edinburg just because we don't have anything to offer them. So I think I'm with you on that.
Hiren, this is Veronica. I agree that with the amendment to move it to 300,000, and then maybe adopting a strategy that we move from the type B projects to the true type A projects, and that's what that incentive monies be used for. I know we're going to have an incentive. We're going to have some guidelines that we're going to follow. So that we're transparent and we're uniform. But this way, it'll also keep us on track with our goal, which is to really become a type A EDC.
I agree with that very much so. Does anybody have any more comments? Does someone want to make the motion with the amendments?
I'll move to that we move $300,000 of the cash reserves into an incentives package with a strategy to use those funds for type A projects.
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. So Omar, do I need to make two amendments? I think we did that a little bit incorrectly. I think we need to do the whole line item at the same time.
It was great. You did a great job.
Okay.
I think the next step would be to formally, it sounds like that was a vote to amend the proposed budget. So now you should vote to adopt the budget.
Okay, great. So now we'll entertain a motion to consider and approve the fiscal year 2020-21 budget. Sorry, 2021-2022 budget.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by...
Wait, hang on one sec, Chair. I'm sorry. Omar, do they need to make the full motion as it's written on the agenda here to include the work plan and the staffing service agreement, or is that done separately?
They can take them in turn or all together.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'll change that then. Sorry, if we can strike that. Can I strike it like that, Omar?
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah. So I guess consider the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget, staffing services, lease agreement, and work plan. I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
I'll make the motion. Item 4, it's E and F. I'm sorry, D and E. Is that correct?
It's just E.
Just E. I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Omar, on line item F, can we present this and then move it to executive for further discussion, or do we have to do the reverse? Or
No, you do have that option if you'd like to have it presented here in the open and then have the deliberation in executive session. You can do that.
Okay. I think, would that be the best course of action, you feel?
You're allowed to do it. You don't have to, but under the Open Meetings Act, you are allowed to do that.
Okay, so then if the board would agree with me, I'd like to have it presented in open session and we can move it to executive for further discussion. Do I need to make a motion there?
Yeah, go ahead and make that motion formally, I think, just so that it's clear for the record.
Okay, so then I'll entertain a motion to present line item F in open session and move the discussion to executive session.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, so I'm not sure who's going to be presenting it.
Yes, we have Mr. Juan Gama ready to present along with Ms. Dulce Hernandez here in the Zoom.
All right. Please go ahead.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Gama.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, great. My name is Juan Gama, and I'm helping Dulce Hernandez with her project. I'm supporting her in regards to facilities and property management. And she would like to go up first to introduce herself and talk a little bit more about her business. Dulce, are you on? Oh, we can't hear you. You might want to turn on your mic. Oh, she probably got disconnected. So while she comes back on, let me move on to the agenda. Is it okay if I share my screen, Blanca?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay. So what I have here is a floor plan of the new project that is located at the corner, at the southeast corner of Trenton and Jackson. This building is approximately 7,715 square feet, and it is comprised of 3,200 square feet of a law office, which is owned by Dulce Hernandez, a 1,300 square feet mediation center, which is also being operated by Dulce Hernandez. And then there's 3 additional suites, one at 800 square feet, a second at 800 square feet, and a third at 1,500 square feet, which is the center one. So the law office, if you can see, it's located in the upper front here. And the mediation center is located.
Mr. Gama,
yes.
sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure we're seeing the.
Okay, sorry about
that.
There.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
okay, so the law office is located at the lower right-hand side. The mediation center is located at the lower left, which is 1,300 square feet. The law office is 3,600 square feet. The mediation center is approximately 1,300 square feet. The center is a rental space at 1,500, and then 2 individual offices on the top side, each of them roughly about 800 square feet. Okay, so a little bit about the project background. This project, the land acquisition was about 380,000. The infrastructure, 50,000. The total improvements of the building is approximately 695,000, along with $20,000 for office furniture and equipment and phones and things of that sort, and then an additional $13,000 for professional service fees. Any questions in regards to the project?
Mr. Gama, I have a question. This building is already built?
Yes. So it has been completed. We recently received the certificate of occupancy, and I believe it was approved today. So we are a go to start business out of this area.
Mr. Gama, this is Dan Diaz. Jackson and Trenton, you said, right? Could you just briefly tell me what it's next to so I could...
So this is
the old Carmike area?
Yeah, so this is a fairly new area. It's south of the Stripes. They just opened up a recent shopping center has been completed. And then obviously it's her office that's being completed as well.
Oh yeah, it's behind the Stripes, right?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
So let me share with you a little bit about how this building currently looks like in case you have not gotten the opportunity to drive by there. Let me flip it one more time. So this is the office. This is an isometric view of the existing condition. It looks pretty similar to this rendering, which is great. Okay. So what we're asking for today is financial support or assistance in a couple areas. One of them is waiving building permit fees which we already paid for in the amount of $1,413. The other is water meter fees, which is in the amount of $1,875, and then possible trash fees, which could be in the amount of $3,498. That is for fees that were incurred during the project. The other are landscaping, building pylon sign, and sidewalk along Jackson Road. The landscaping came at a cost roughly of $12,143. The pylon sign is at $20,075, and the sidewalk along the right-of-way is for $5,000. And what I'd like to show you is the pylon sign that we currently are installing at this location, which is this right here. I'm not sure if you guys can view that at the moment. So it's a 21-foot sign by 10. It has a room for 5 slots for tenants, of which 2 will be taken up by the mediation center and the law firm. Any questions in regards to the requests?
Mr. Gama, this is Ms. Gonzalez. I have a question with regard to job creation, and how many jobs are expected to be created at this particular office and mediation center?
And that's a very good question. And we currently have a possible job creation for, that was the part that Ms. Hernandez is going to add. But I believe,
there's 19 total. I believe it's in there.
Yeah, Mr. I remember seeing it, but I didn't have the packet right in front of me, so I was hoping he could give us a good idea of that.
That is correct. It would be a total of, sorry about that. She was going to present on that part, so I'm trying to find where that is.
It's okay. We do, I think we do have it in the packet because I recall seeing it. I just didn't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, Ms. Gonzalez, along with those lines, this is Raul. Mr. Gama, it says 7 potential employees. Is this law firm already in town?
So she is actually relocating from McAllen. So they're relocating their office from McAllen to obviously this location. And with that comes the grow, which is why she's providing the additional offices.
Mm-hmm. Now, was this ever, this is Raul again, now this project's already completed. We're in the business, if you will, to get new projects on board to bring, did you ever come up to the board to ask for assistance or help? I know there's a lot of other strip centers going on right next to you. There's one, several along Jackson, pretty much already completed. What was the rationale behind asking for help now?
Well, we did additionally start at the beginning. However, I believe the board was in transition and there was another gentleman I was communicating during that time. So this was the time that I guess was available in order to present the information, but we did start early in the process. I don't know. I don't have exact dates in front of me. I would have to research that on my emails in regards to the communication, but it did start early.
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, this is here in. Are there any more questions regarding the presentation?
Mr. Gama, this is Dan Diaz. So I'm looking at the presentation. It says 1,358 mediation center with potential employees. That's just one. So that's just an extension of the law office, correct?
That is correct.
And then the other 3, what's the to rent out to what kind of client there? Because it says potential employees 3, so it's just small office.
Yes, I don't. In regards to that, I don't have the exact details but I know she was thinking about onboarding additional attorneys to provide more services. She does real estate and family, and she was going to grow her focus within real estate. That's why she had the larger office to accommodate that. Now, what time frame she has, I'm not familiar how the details in that particular front, but that is the plan because the office, I mean, the building does have several offices to accommodate for more professionals.
Right. Okay, thank you.
This is here and again. Thank you, Mr. Gama. Before we let Mr. Gama go, does anybody else have any more questions or comments? Thank you for your presentation, sir.
Yeah, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to sit in front of you guys or in front of Zoom to tell you about the project. I don't know if Dulce is still on and maybe she would like to share something, or maybe we've already run out of time.
If she wants to speak, she's more than welcome to.
Building looks great, by the way, Mr. Gama. It looks beautiful.
Thank you. We still can't hear you in the mic. She's having a few technical issues. And it could be because she just moved a lot of her equipment in there and is getting familiar with it. And we've been working this whole past week to change phones, internet, all those things that are critical for her to operate her business.
Ms. Hernandez, I'll give you maybe one more minute, see if you can get it fixed there.
And just to also share, we definitely have some folks that are already interested in some of the locations. So we're looking at other possible, one possible restaurant or two and another office use. So I think it is a great location where you'll definitely see a lot of growth in the next few weeks.
Blanca, you may want to put Ms. Hernandez in the waiting room and then bring her back. We've done that before with some other members who've had audio issues, and sometimes that fixed it.
Let's try that. And Ms. Hernandez also made a comment on chat there saying that she thinks it might be her computer because she just got it set up.
She was admitted back. I'm not sure she can speak. No.
Nope.
Maybe I would suggest Mr. Gama give her a call if anything she wants to say right through you while we're all here on the phone, just to give her a chance to speak.
Yeah, let me try that quickly.
We still, I can't hear her at least.
Okay, can you hear her now? Dulce, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. But I can't hear anything.
No, so just tell us a little bit about your business, how you're relocating from McAllen to Edinburg, and how you see your business growing for the next few years now that you're made Edinburg your home.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, good afternoon. I am so sorry I can't I can't make this computer work. But yes, as Juan was telling you, I'm an attorney. I'm also a mediator and arbitrator. I have been doing some mediations for the last probably 2 years or so. I started in McAllen, and I've been in the business for over 30 years in several positions. And for the last 8 years, I've been a solo practitioner. And yes, I do, my practice is primarily real estate, family law, some estate planning. And, since I started, I've been growing, teams, a few years at a time. And so I decided that I needed a bigger place because I've outgrown my current office is a 1,500 square foot building. And so the thought was that I do want to start doing or venturing into other businesses, and I needed a bigger place. And so we found this great location here in Edinburg, and that was one of the main reasons that we wanted to move, with a new courthouse being so close by, doing mediations. I think, I can contribute to the city of Edinburg by hiring employees, attorneys, and, in my future businesses. My husband and I, that we want to start from here. So I think it's just a great place to be, and a great, great location here on Trenton and Jackson. I do see a potential of, several other, employees here in my office. Hopefully, I've had up to, four employees at a time. And I think now with this place, I think there's a potential for more employees, and also, for my rental office or rental places to bring in, more employees and more taxes for the city of Edinburg. So I really appreciate any help or any assistance that I can get to get it going sooner, because, if I have the funds, then I can start the projects, a lot sooner. So any support that I would get from the city would be greatly appreciated. So if you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Hernandez?
This is Ms. Gonzalez. Ms. Hernandez, your office is already open, is that correct?
Here in Edinburg, we just barely got the clearance today.
Okay, so you are expecting to move to Edinburg regardless of any kind of reimbursements or incentives, right? I mean, that was the plan, was to move here.
Yes, my office will it's here. Yes, I've already finished my lease over there in McAllen, which is right here off of Esperanza and Hall.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I'm glad we were able to get to hear from you.
Thank you.
Indeed. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Ms. Hernandez?
Yeah, this is Dan. I'm looking at the proposal, and it says in addition to the sales tax revenue. What sales tax revenue are we expecting?
Well, probably from my tenants, Mr. Gama was mentioning, we're talking to probably some type of food, restaurants or some other type that would bring in some revenue. That's what I want. I mean, I want people that are going to contribute, not just for professional services, because of course
I agree with you there. We're looking for sales tax as well. Thank you, ma'am, for answering my question.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Any more comments for Ms. Hernandez or questions? No. Thank you very much for your time, Ms. Hernandez and Mr. Gama.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We move the discussion portion over to executive so we can further discuss there. Moving on to agenda item G, consider the renewal of the UTRGV technical assistance contract for fiscal year 2021.
And here, and this is Veronica. On this one, I'm going to recuse myself from any vote on this since it's UTRGV. And also, just as for transparency purposes, the DISC office, the office that is being considered for doing this work, is actually reports to me. So for sure, I don't want to have anything to do with the vote on this one. I just wanted to. But if y'all have any questions relative to that office, I'm happy to answer any questions for information.
Thank you, Veronica, for your candor there. Blanca, would you be presenting
the contract? Or
yes. Yes. So, or if there's any, sorry, would you be answering the questions rather? If there's anybody who has any questions or comments regarding the contract.
Yes. We have the contract has been included in your packet, and in the cover sheet that was included, it was explained that the last fiscal year contract was about $30,000, and it was reduced to $15,000 this coming year due to the city services that we have for GIS and what was the other one, Brian?
For IT. Yeah,
IT, yeah.
Yeah, UTRGV was supporting those needs for EPC, and because we can take advantage of the city services now, we don't need that anymore. So that's for 15,000.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for either Blanca or Veronica?
This is Raul. Yeah, this is great. Are these all online services, or somebody needs to go online, not on campus, correct?
So I've utilized them a couple times being here, and it's we basically have access to really good researchers for whatever we need. Data services. You're going to see in the next agenda item a couple economic impact reports. They turn that around to me in 24 hours. They do a really good job, and we don't have the research capacity we really need here. And so that's an area that I know the staff here wants to really beef up in the next year or two. So this is a pretty valuable asset.
Yep.
And Raul, just to answer, they have access to some online programs where they can put in the data. And so it's not, I guess it's not subjective in a sense. They'll take whatever data is provided to them, they'll run it through the programs, and they're able to give you a report based on what the program shows.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions or comments?
I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right one. It's the technical assistance contract, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Does that include, and I tried to find it and I'm not sure, I know it's like generation of reports and data, but does that include like a comprehensive economic impact survey or anything like that?
So it's sort of work as needed. So, in the next agenda item, we needed quickly an economic impact summary for one of those proposals. And so they generated sort of on request.
Guys, this is Dan. I just have a comment. So as not to taint this whole line item, can I request Veronica to be in the waiting room, and if we have to bring her in?
Omar, since she's already abstained from voting, would she need to be put in the waiting room?
No, this is a public discussion. This is not happening in closed session, so she does not need to be removed.
Okay, great. I want to make sure we don't taint it in any way.
Thank you, Dan. I don't want to mess up the rules here. Thank you.
Indeed. Well, then I'll entertain a motion to approve or consider renewal of the technical assistant contract for 2021.
I make a motion to approve the technical assistant contract.
I'll second that, Sabrina.
All those in favor signify by saying aye or raise your right hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries with one abstention for Veronica Gonzalez. For the record. All right. Moving on to the next agenda item, consider funding for Get Digital with UTRGV Partnership and Commercialization Center.
I'm going to make the same, I'm going to abstain from this one as well but I'll provide any answers you may have. And this is the one that I think we had presented on last time in terms of the information, kind of question and answer, which again, that group reports to my office. So I'll abstain on that vote.
So this one it's a virtual training program. There, if you look at the cover page for the agenda item, there are basically 3 tracks. We've I think as we talked about last month, there's a couple opportunities here, particularly to follow up on the city's Spark program. One of the things we learned there, one of the significant lessons learned was that not everybody is up to speed, much less leveraging or taking advantage of online commerce opportunities. And so, when we heard this program was available, we thought this would be a good fit. The proposal is for $12,500 for 250 slots, basically for Edinburg businesses. And this is we could do this in the short term. They're already offering this program, I think, in Brownsville and other areas. So it's already established. We've got a good database of businesses from the Spark program we can start with. If you look under the budget section of that cover page, there is some question. And Ron, I don't know if you want to get into this. There's a possibility that there may be some CARES funding available. If there is not CARES funding available, what we would propose to do, if the board wants to do this, would be to take it out of the small business program line item in the newly adopted budget.
We recommended the placement of this item at this point just for timeliness. But again, like Brian just mentioned, there is a potential that the city distribution of CARES Act, we're about to reconcile and finalize that. But this could be an item that we fund through that source. So if we did, it would need EDC funds at all. However, if you wanted to support it and CARES Act was not available, then that's why we placed this agenda item. So it's almost a contingency, should you want to support it, a contingency action item if CARES Act is not available. But again, kind of expanding on what Brian just said, we've learned a lot from our Spark program. I think that program, not only the economic stimulus that it provided, but I think the biggest thing that it actually provided sustainably was this connection to the small businesses in the city. And unfortunately, there is a significant deficit in terms of capacity for online marketing, for their own business capacity that I think long-term and ongoing, we have to work on developing better small business capacity for these existing businesses. So this is just one way to do that. There's many ways to do that. I think we do, again, over the course of the year, need to do and develop a robust small business program. But this is just one step and one consideration.
And then on, if it does go towards CARES Act, I know we had talked about it previously of, kind of teaming up with the chamber and, doing businesses and things like that, because that's kind of their day-to-day, operations and, goal over there, handling all the business, all that. So I know we were trying to team up together. How would this affect teaming up or?
So I actually met with Ronnie on Friday and we talked about this, and I know this is kind of a subset, but we're kind of finalizing the agreement between the city and the chamber. And we know that small business development and capacity building is going to be a huge thing. But essentially, this is a virtual program. So we're just providing the resource. The chamber would help us market this to reach out to businesses. But again, through the Spark program, we have a database of over 500 businesses that we know need it already. So we definitely do this kind of in alignment with them. But the good news is they wouldn't have to pay for anything.
I really like the program, and also I know we need to make sure that getting them, trained on it, but actually them having the facilities to be able to use it and, create the e-commerce and generate the sales tax revenue and, legitimately help their businesses. And obviously, I believe this program would pay for itself quite quickly if everything goes, the way I believe it should.
Yeah, I second that, Aaron. I really like this program, and the only thing that I would like to see, or I don't know if it's in place, is there any sort of goals they have to meet, or maybe have to pay the money back? Like Hiram said, I don't want somebody to take this training and do nothing with it. how do we make sure that they actually learn from this and proceed forward with it? Is there any checks and balances?
I think that's pretty tough to measure. It's relatively a low cost per business. It's just collectively, if we're helping 250, then that's where we get the 12,000. So, I think we're going to learn a lot when we offer it and people don't take advantage of it. That's really going to scare us.
So how do you pick who gets to go?
So again, part of the Spark program, and Brian, help me with the numbers, but I think it was about 538 businesses, something like that.
I saw that list. It's a long list.
Yeah, I think we could do two things. We could do a first come, first serve, or kind of informally, we did identify those businesses that really do need it the most. But some just aren't ready for that jump into e-commerce, even though we know they need it.
Yeah, I was going to say some won't even have the capability to do it. So,
and that was more to what I was speaking with. That I want to make sure that we train them on how to get digital, and they actually have the facilities to be succeed in an e-commerce way. Maybe we think of this kind of a two-part program, or someone who already has e-commerce in place and needs to make it better. And then maybe in the future, we help someone that, hey, they need iPads or, something like that. And we create incentives. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to help them, especially during these times, I'm all for it.
Maybe assuring that they have the technology even available within their business, so that it's not going to be, like they go us somewhere, get on the computer, learn how to do it, but then never actually implement it within their own business.
Yeah, like I guess at least, prerequisites, have a computer.
Yeah, have the equipment, and have somebody that you're going to know more about based on the size of the business, I think, which ones are more well equipped. The other thing I wanted to add is that, we also have a small business development center within the university, some other offices, so that if a business is really, I guess during the trainings, they're realizing, hey, I could use some assistance on financing. I could use some assistance, on putting together a business plan. Those, we'll let them know. Those services are also available to them, and those services are free. So if they want to learn how to do that, or they need some assistance, we can give them that information. And then with regard to the chamber here, I do think that those businesses that sign up and that learn this, it's a great opportunity for the chamber then to reach out to make them chamber members. If the city is willing to give us that same list, the chamber, the list of those who attend, then I think that's a great opportunity for us to reach out for memberships.
Brian,
Sure.
This is Aaron. I have a question for you. Are these programs being offered or in Spanish or in both languages? Yes?
Yes, sir. Both languages.
All right. Anybody else have any more questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion to consider funding for Get Digital with UTRGV.
I make a motion to consider funding for the digital with UTRGV with the note. I need to make sure that the motion includes funding recommendation based on the other funding opportunities like CARES.
So I guess wording it maybe consider funding it, assuming that CARES Act does not fund it.
Correct.
Would that be correct? Would that be a correct way of wording it, Omar?
To be kind of all-encompassing, you may want to just make sure you sweep in any funding by the city otherwise.
Okay. So I make a motion to consider funding for the Get Digital with UTRGV, contingent upon other funding secured by the city. I'm not sure if I said that right.
Any funding gaps.
Yeah. Sounded good to me.
I'll second what she said.
All those in favor signify by saying aye, or please raise your hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On agenda item I, I'd like to do the same thing we did with agenda item F, present them in open session and move them to executive for further discussion.
Mr. President, I want to make a point. Can we listen to if there's anybody making a point? Let's listen to them first before we tell them we're not going to do anything right now. And then we can just motion to move.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly my motion. So the same thing we did with agenda item F. Listen to the proposals in open session and then further discussion in executive. Is that what you're saying, Dan?
I'm just saying let's not cut them off before they even present.
Oh, no. I want to please let them present. So if I'll entertain a motion to do the presentations now in open session and then further discussion in executive.
So moved.
I think Roland said second. But all those in favor?
Yes,
Roland,
second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye, or please raise your right hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. All right. If we can proceed with the presentations, please.
Hi, Mark. Maybe I can unmute Mark.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Go ahead, Mark.
Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark. I'm with Hannah Solutions. I am the broker for Edinburg North Industrial Park. We've got two proposals from two different companies. We can go ahead and start with Gateway America. I believe you all have the presentation that Blanca sent you. Let me see if I can share my screen so that way you all can see this. Give me one moment. I apologize. For some reason, I would have to restart my Zoom if I shared the screen. Does everyone have the presentation? Yes? Okay. Let me just go ahead and start with Gateway America. So a little bit about Gateway America. They're a food safety company. Reading directly from their website, what they do is food irradiation, which is the application of ionizing radiation to food. It's a technology that improves the safety and extends the shelf life of foods by reducing or eliminating microorganisms and insects. They have been looking at the property the last 8 months, and their proposal is to put it under contract, and they're going to take advantage of the property being in an opportunity zone to basically build this facility. They are going to invest about $6 million into the facility to get it up to par for what they're going to use it for. And they're going to have about 35 jobs in phase one, which have a pay range between $34,000 to $180,000. And the goal is, thank you. And the goal is to purchase it after a 6-month timeline. So when we discussed this with them, they said, well, we need to put it under contract, but we need, a certain amount of time. I recommended to them that the only way it would be more entertaining to the EDC board is if there was some kind of compensation for having to put it under contract for such a long time. So that's why I suggested the temporary lease. During the temporary lease, they're really just paying to have it put under contract. So you can consider that like option. Now, this lease would signify that they can occupy the building. And after the 6 months or prior, whenever they're able to close after their feasibility, they would close on the building and purchase it at a price of $1 million. Now that lease, that monthly lease would not go towards the purchase price. So there would be $7,500 in monthly rent for up to 6 months, and there would be a purchase price of $1 million cash at closing. So some pros and cons to look at this. 180-day feasibility means that during those 180 days, they can back out at any time and receive their earnest money in return. The property will be taken off the market, right? So we can entertain backup offers, but most of the time with a property like this, someone will not entertain or put up a backup offer. So that's offer number one. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Yes, Mr. Hanna, this is Ms. Gonzalez. I have a question. I know that they needed to get some approvals, and what if they don't get the approval? So I mean, I guess that would be something that we would risk them to not conclude the purchase if they can't get the approvals needed. And what approvals are they exactly?
Yeah, so that is correct. So the 180-day feasibility is like an option period where they're going to go through and get a various of approvals from state and federal government. What they're doing is not new, but it's new to the area, and it's an innovation when it comes to food safety. So I can't tell you what exact, because I don't have the list of approvals that they require, but I do know it's substantial, and it's above the city level. But more than likely, if they get the building fit with the improvements that they need, the $6 million, it's highly unlikely that they won't get approved. There's not special licenses that are required. It's more about having the space fit with the improvements of the equipment. But to answer your question in the summary, there's no guarantee that they will get everything that they need done. That's why they need so much time, which is 180 days of feasibility. Worst case scenario, if we had 180 days, the property was under contract, the city would be compensated and keep that $7,500 a month, however long the lease went on, plus a deposit.
Ryan, is there somebody from the company on who can answer this question more directly?
So I can definitely get someone on the line right now. If you give me a moment.
Question. Yeah, because one other question, you said they're going to invest $6 million in equipment. I take it that since they want to get the approvals based on the equipment, what happens then if, for instance, they don't get the approvals? What's going to happen? Is that the type of equipment that can easily be taken out of the building without?
So no property improvements would be made until they close. When I said at the beginning that they're going to use the opportunity zone designated tax, because this property is in what the IRS calls a designated opportunity zone. And the opportunity zone was part of the 2017 tax plan that the federal government passed that labeled certain properties in slow growth areas. And it's kind of like an amplified 1031 exchange. So one of the things that this allows you to do is to raise money, to raise funds. They are going to raise a round of money using this opportunity zone from various investors. And really, there's not going to be any improvements made in the building during the lease. Nothing's going to happen until after they close because they themselves don't want to take the risk, and none of the investors will take the risk. It's more of the 6 months is just to allow them time to take advantage of the opportunity zone designation that comes along with it. The opportunity zone designation says that you can raise funds if you have a lease or if you own the property. So with the lease, that is what they plan on doing.
Mr. Hanna, this is Raul. Does that lease run concurrent with the 6 months of feasibility, or is it 6 months feasibility So it's in essence, okay. So,
Yeah.
and so if something does not happen after 6 months, it's technically withdrawn, correct?
Correct. Yeah. They don't plan on leasing it if they can't purchase it.
Mr. Hanna, this is Dan Diaz. So what I was gathering from what I'm reading here is that they probably need a building of this size and the parameters to try and obtain funding and the certain contracts. So if they don't get those contracts, then they're not going to need the building. That kind of summarize it?
Yes, sir.
And so I'm asking why should the city or why should our board consider a $500,000 sale? At first I thought, wow, 6-month lease, but I realized they need the building and all that in place before they can go out for this funding and contracts. And so how does that help us or even convince us in taking a $500,000 loss on the property?
So another thing that I had sent, so the $500,000 loss that you're saying on the property is based on the appraisal that was done in 2018 that says that the property has a value of $1,525,000, which is the current sales price. I've been working with the Edinburg EDC, the last 3 boards selling this property, and this is the highest offer we've received thus far. And one of the things that that I've told them, number one, an appraisal is one thing. The market and what the market is willing to pay for a property is more than anything the biggest indicator. This property, although it is a great property, based on the comparables that we have, the market doesn't show that it's worth $1,525,000, and for various amounts of things. Number one, the location. It is off of the expressway, but it's not off of the frontage. It's in an area that is not necessarily the most friendliest to all logistics industrial. It does have a lot of potential, and it also doesn't have a fire sprinkler system. Almost every warehouse would need a fire sprinkler system. And, we've gotten different estimations from $300,000 to $500,000 on just a fire sprinkler system for a 20,000 square foot building. So anyone that purchases this is going to be required by the city of Edinburg to install a fire suppression system. So, different people that have looked at it, buyers that operate warehouses locally and across the state and country say, well, I understand the property value of 1.525, and I always provide the appraisal to every single buyer because that is where we're getting the value from. And they always come back to me with these same things. So in summary, we can keep it on the market and try to wait until someone's willing to pay that. But realistically, the market, even before COVID, was not willing to pay that price for those various things.
Mr. Hanna, this is Aaron Rivera. I have a question. How long has this building been vacant?
It's been vacant for a little less than 45 days. Prior to that, it had one tenant, Nuco Tool, that the building was originally built for in 2003. And that tenant was there until about 45 days ago when they were evicted, I believe.
And have you had any calls for people interested in renting it or anything else?
People have definitely been interested in renting it, but the last boards told me that the EDC was not interested in leasing, which is why I never entertained any of those things. If leasing is something that the board would consider, I can definitely put a proposal together to tell you what market rate would be. But as of this time, we have not done any advertising for lease.
Hey, Mr. Hanna, part, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the value is it being in that empowerment zone, correct? Not necessarily, it's all inclusive with that as well.
In the opportunity zone. So opportunity zones don't necessarily, so in order to qualify for an opportunity zone, you have to be in a low growth area. So by definition, opportunity zones are already not attractive properties for whatever reason. which is why they put this on there to attract investors to say, so an opportunity zone says that if you purchase the property and you make improvements and you sell it in 5 years, you save 10% on your capital gain. If you sell it in 7 years, you save 15% on your capital gain. If you sell it in 10, you have 100%, capital gain deduction. So there's definitely some attraction, but since 2017, across the country, at the beginning of when it was implemented, it was a very hot tool that people were using. And now they're starting to see, well, if I have to wait 5, 7, or 10 years to collect, there's other investments that will give me a better return. It does have a value. It really, really does. But because it's not short term, in 2 years or less, it's really hard to add a value. But I do agree with you that it's definitely something that we want to advertise, and we have been. That this is 100% in an opportunity zone. And this individual, this company, Gateway America, is taking advantage of that.
Mr. Hanna, one other question. This is Ms. Gonzalez. Does Gateway America, what is their track record? I mean, do they have other businesses where they do this type of service in another city, perhaps, or another opportunity zone?
So they not in an opportunity zone, but they do have one location in let's see, where is this? Give me one moment.
It's Mississippi, isn't it, Mark?
Yes, Mississippi. That's correct, Brian. Yes, they have one facility in Mississippi, and they're trying to enter the Texas market. Last year, they purchased a building in the city of Hidalgo with some different incentives from the EDC. And unfortunately, they need more land. So after purchasing that property, it was a cash transaction. They didn't really do a lot of feasibility. They realized that they're very close to other properties, and they need more distance, why this property sitting on 8 acres is much more attractive to them. They plan on using that other property for different things like logistics, maybe receiving things from south of the border and then doing the treatment at this property. But in Texas, this will be their first facility.
And the Mississippi facility has been successful?
Yes, it has been successful, which is why they're coming here. I did ask for an audited financial statement from the company so that we could see the strength of the company. And he says that he will, provide all of those items, if needed. He's not asking for any incentives. He's just asking that we structure the property in this lease, to purchase option.
This is a hearing. So I know with the extra land, do they have a plan? Let's say it succeeds for expansion. Can they expand? Will we have the same quote unquote land issues they had in Hidalgo?
No, so they do have a phase 2, and they do plan on building a larger facility. But it was more about having neighbors, other neighbors, or being close to any residential areas. But since we're in an industrial park, they won't have any issues here. And if they build next door, they will operate the facility. They don't plan on subdividing or selling any of those properties.
And the restrictions they had with neighbors was that a EPA regulation or something? OSHA.
It was more something that they didn't want to do because of personal liability. They didn't want to run into any future liabilities. No one stopped them from doing it. In fact, the city of Hidalgo has been trying to get them to set up those facilities there, but they want something that they can grow into long term, and that property sits on like 1.5 acres, and there's not a lot of long-term growth here. Here they see the long-term growth.
And then on this,
sorry, go ahead.
On this proposal here, it says medical sterilization. So would they only be doing, produce, or would there, medical equipment, I don't know, like sterilized gloves or something like that? Would they be doing that also?
So when it says medical sterilization facility, what they mean is the irradiation, it's food safety. So they're basically eliminating bacteria from produce. It's very possible that this could grow into other products, but right now they're sticking to their niche. And having, the FAR International Bridge being the #1 produce bridge in America, they plan on taking advantage of that. So right now, produce is their only focus. A year ago, I approached the Edinburg EDC because I saw this, industrial park full of so much potential because it was in a designated opportunity zone. It was off the interstate, and it wasn't being advertised as it should, which is why I took on the endeavor to, put packages together, advertise it. And we've had lots and lots of interest, and we haven't been able to make anything happen yet. I've been working on this for a year without any success yet, but we've brought a lot of attention to the park. I've told every board that in order to be successful in the grand vision of the Edinburg North Industrial Park, we have to have one major anchor first. And that major anchor, aside from FedEx, has to start with this building that already has improvements. If we can get someone that is a local owner, a local business, that is able to operate and be successful in this area, then the remaining 50 acres of raw land, we can attract other developers and end users to build more industrial property. But it won't happen until this property is being utilized by someone local that can be kind of like the case study. So whether it's this company or the next the next proposal that I send you, I urge the board to focus on the big picture of what this Edinburg North Industrial Park can be. We have the opportunity to develop a grand vision for this park from the ground up, take advantage of the opportunity zone. The city of FAR has taken advantage of their industrial park for produce because it's also 100% in an opportunity zone. But what we have is the benefit of time to the interstate. That no one has to drive through the city to get to the interstate of where they're going, and they have more of privacy, and they have industrial roads built in with all utilities, etc. So I just kind of wanted to paint that picture so that you all understand that every end user that I've brought forward to entertain this, I've let them know there's a bigger plan and opportunity when they invest in this Edinburg North Industrial Park.
Mr. Hanna, I think, you make a very good case for them and for why this could be an anchor for other type of industry. My question on the agencies that would need to issue approvals, I guess I was wondering if there's any EPA concerns, perhaps. You say that they're basically injecting something in the produce to increase the shelf life, right? And
yes.
So I just didn't know if there's any issues there with, pesticides or something that would trigger an EPA approval with being required. Because you also mentioned not wanting to have neighbors nearby. Understandably, especially residential. And so I just want to make sure that what we're doing is selling a property to a company that wouldn't actually be contaminating the land or anything. It would be their property, but it would be on us that we're the seller of it. So just wanted to be sure that we're,
so
what kind
their
of
approvals, yes, so their approvals come from the FDA, the USDA, FSIC, and those are the major entities that they have to work through. But it's not so much on the danger or potential liability on the property. It's more on having the stamp of approval that after a product passes their facility, that it's ready to be delivered to its end user. They're not, they don't have anything that's going to be harmful to the dirt or anything like that. But what I do recommend is that it's possible that the board could counter and restructure the feasibility to say that in the first 30 days, these questions and concerns must be addressed. And these could be questions and concerns that, Ms. Gonzalez, that you brought up, whether it's the FDA or EPA, they must be addressed. And we need to have some type of concrete, so that way they don't take the full 180 days and then nothing happens. So we could stipulate it into, it's a total of 180 days feasibility, but within the 30 days, these buyers must produce X, Y, and Z. And if they cannot, well, the contract will be terminated and the lease.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it.
Yes. Does anyone have any more questions on this before we move on to the second? Okay. So the second purchase is from Primo Trading. Primo Trading is a local produce broker. They plan on purchasing the property. They put in an offer previously for $825,000 on this building. I've also been working with them for the last 6 months. They plan on buying the building and retrofitting it into cold storage. So if you look across the street from the Edinburg North Industrial Park, you have one of the biggest produce companies here in South Texas, which is J&D Produce. Primo Trading plans on doing something very similar on this. They're going to obviously retrofit it into cold storage. They're doing a lot of innovation on the technology side and the tech side with their growers here in South Texas and in Mexico across the border. So they plan on building a little tech center where they're able to kind of keep a track of when yields are going to be reflected and keeping track with weather patterns, et cetera, for their farmers. Their offer is really simple. They increased their offer from $825,000 to $950,000, and they'll close in less than 90 days. I've already spoken with the banker for this buyer, and they feel confident. It's Frost Bank. They feel confident that they'll be able to close in 60 days, but they're asking for 90 days in case there's any delays in anything at all. And this person would be purchasing it, turning it into cold storage, and phase 2 would build on the extra piece of land a bigger cold storage facility. Cold storage is also a great opportunity for the Edinburg North Industrial Park for various reasons. It does work, as we know, because J&D Produce are, right across the expressway, and they've been there for a very long time. But if we could get cold storage in the park, you would have a lot of people in the far area that would either consider relocating, because the areas there are very compact. There's a lot of traffic, and when it comes to produce, time is money. So when people cross the bridges, they might decide not to cross the Far International Bridge. They might cross the Ansalduas Bridge after commercial traffic is approved in 2021. They might cross Progreso, Donna, or the Star Camargo Bridge in Rio Grande City. And they might decide to end up, let's go store our stuff in the Edinburg North Industrial Park, cold storage here, and after that, the end user hit the interstate and head north. So there's a lot of benefits to cold storage. It's a very big industry here. This is not a lot of risk at all. We know that he's approved. We know that cold storage works. We know it's an industry that's big here on South Texas. So when you compare the two deals, this one is $50,000 less, but the time to close is less, and the likelihood of them not moving forward with the offer is highly unlikely.
Mr. Hanna, which do you think would be the better anchor?
So the likelihood of having Gateway America here as an anchor, it's great, but I think that there's more. If I'm fishing and I'm looking to find people that are going to build, create jobs and improvements right away, I'm looking for the industry that's here, that's growing, that has lots of assets, and that we can take advantage of. And that's cold storage. Obviously, I think both would be amazing. I wish that there was another warehouse that we could fit both in here, but obviously there's only one. And when it comes from the EDC standpoint, one of them is more secure than the other. But one of them has a bigger opportunity. Cold storage is not going to provide paying jobs of $180,000 a year like this other Gateway America. But it's very possible that if we move forward with Gateway America, it doesn't ever come to fruition. So I think it comes to the EDC board that it's a risk that we have to be willing to take. But when it comes to the industry that is already here, that is growing, and there's lots and lots of demand, that's cold storage.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions on this?
Mr. Hanna, this is Dan Diaz. I don't know if it's in the proposal, but the number of employees or job creation, do we have that somewhere?
So when it comes to cold storage, job creation is not a big thing. They have a lot of independent contractors, a lot of it's seasonal work, which is why employees isn't something that we put into the presentation. At one time a year, they might have 20 employees. Another time of year, they might have 5. So it's not necessarily something that the EDC would look at. Both companies don't have sales tax revenue. There's no hotel occupancy tax, and only one of these is looking at hiring a large amount of people. But again, neither of them are asking for any incentives. They're just both looking to purchase the property at the price that they see reasonable.
Thank you.
This is Brian. Just to remind the board, in the packet, I did mention earlier that UTRGV did some preliminary economic impact estimates for both projects. So those are in your packet.
And one more question, Mark. So do you think if we were to say to Gateway, you have to show us the approvals within the 30 days, or let's say we say 60 days, and if they couldn't do it, do you think Primo would still be interested in that time period in purchasing this property?
So being very transparent, I've been working with them the past 6 months. There's a backup property that they're ready to pull the trigger on, and it's in the city of FAR.
Mr. Hand,
I mean, we just to finish up. So, Primo, we put in an offer at the end of May, and it wasn't until the end of July, beginning of August, that we got a response back to him. And he kind of had been waiting around, and obviously he put in a low offer, $825,000, and I let him know that. Brian and Blanca had a call with him, and let him know that the board feels the property is worth 1.525 million based on the appraisal. But it's they're looking for good deals, obviously, but we got him to come up from 850,000 to 825,000 to 950, right? So I personally think that the property is worth between $900,000 to $1 million, $900,000 to $1 million. And that's based off of comps. I don't think anyone is looking to pay that anything more than that. We did have someone that was allegedly going to make an offer of 1.2 million, but at the end of the day, after looking at their own comps provided by their own broker, they wanted to make an offer of 700,000. And I said, go ahead and make the offer, but respectfully, an offer like that has already been declined in the past. And so they didn't bring an offer forward.
What's Ron, or who can answer this? What's the cost of us holding this building? I know we have several buildings that have been costing us to carry. What's the annualized cost to carry this building?
Sorry, Raul, I couldn't make out your question.
Well, what is the annual, or if it's not rented or sold, what's our annualized cost of carrying the property?
Blanca, do you have the maintenance broken out for the property and the property tax?
Yes. So the property tax is close to 40,000 a year, right? But the EDC doesn't pay that. Doesn't pay property taxes. When it comes to landscaping and those items, I don't know exactly what the EDC spends. But if you were to retain it, the best thing to do is to lease it.
Right.
So if you were to lease it, you would set up what we call a triple net lease, where the tenant would pay their prorated share, which is 100% of property taxes, and prorated share of insurance, which is 100%. The only thing is that if you were to do that, you'd probably have to subdivide the 8-acre tract into 2 4-acre tracts, because I don't think someone would need the full 8 acres. But I mean, in my personal opinion, if you lease it, it's very difficult that you might just get someone that wants cheap rent, right? Because it's like they're going to come out here and we might ask for $14,000 a month, and they might say, well, no one else is here, and it's very possible that it could sit empty. If you're going to provide it as a lease, it would probably have to be as an incentive base to some large company that's going to provide jobs and be an economic generator. I mean, overall, I mean, I know I might sound biased, but my recommendation would be to sell it to an end user that's going to put it to its full potential and be an anchor, so that we can sell the remaining 50 acres. Because it's not so much just what's the cost of keeping this property, it's what's the cost of keeping this property the entire park. And it's also a liability, because there's lots of trucks and cars out there that go and park, and they're, do donuts back there, and it's just empty. And we've got FedEx back there, which is a great anchor, but it doesn't allow, either of the acreage from back to front to be developed.
Mark, sorry, I know that they've come up between 825 to 950, and I'm, $50,000, is a lot of money when we think about the two differences in the projects. What are the odds that they would come to maybe matching the other one, or coming up a little higher, or, something of that nature?
So I came prepared with that. So I think that there's a way to do it, but they would want some kind of property tax abatement. So it would be an indirect thing, like, okay, we'll pay $1 million for it, but we want some kind of property tax abatement. So the way that the EDC could structure it is, okay, Hidalgo County has it valued at, 1.59. Well, you're going to make improvements of cold storage, and let's say that you invest $700,000 into the building. That difference, we'll give you a property tax abatement for 5 years. So the city won't lose on any of its current value, right? They'll start collecting on what it's currently worth. But on the improvements, we'll provide you a tax abatement. And then the buyer pays $1 million. And after those 5 years, you collect on the full value.
Did we buy, Mr. Hanna? We just bought this at a high price? Is that it?
No, this property was built in 2003 specifically for Nuco Tool, which was the last tenant.
But we built it.
You built it, correct?
Raul, this is the property that the tenant had not paid in a long time. Two different boards voted to evict them, and they just cleared the building 45 days ago. So it's barely been on the market, maybe 45 days.
Yeah,
we were never able to show it before.
My concern, Mr. Hanna, would be, obviously, we have an appraisal for $1.5 million. And what would the public think of us getting rid of it for $1 million, for $950,000? So,
I mean, there's justification, right? I think there's two ways to look at this, right? Number one, yes, there is an appraisal for $1,525,000. But that appraisal, when you order an appraisal as a property owner and it's not for a bank and it's not for a real estate transaction, the numbers always come back extremely positive. Herein, you could probably attest to this. If you order an appraisal on your property just for yourself, that appraisal always comes back extremely higher. And if I were to debate the comparables that they use, which they didn't use any comparables, they did it in as-built appraisal. There's a lot that you can debate. But at the end of the day, the property is only worth what someone is willing to pay. We've had the property on the market the last year, 365 days. And to this day, these two offers are the highest. And, personally speaking, I've spent $4,000 on promoting and pushing this property. It's not because no one knows about it. It's not because it hasn't been seen. It's got over 225,000 views. The thing is that when you look at this property and you compare it to others, it's priced and it's in the $60 per square foot range. There's cold storage off of Bicentennial and Nolana in McAllen that's priced at $50 a square foot. That's already cold storage. There's turnkey warehouses in Hidalgo, in FAR, in Wesco, that are priced at $45 a square foot, and they're location centric, right? So I think that the focus of using this appraisal, which is number one, outdated, and appraisal is only good for 6 months, it does a disservice to making a judgment call on the value. I think that the judgment call on value should be made using the comparables, to look around and look at the other properties that are on the market currently and that are actually being sold, not as built, what it would cost to rebuild it. And then saying, what is the cost or opportunity cost of not getting this building occupied or not selling it to someone that could create jobs and stimulate the economy directly or indirectly?
Brian, do you have any perspective or comments regarding the UTR-GV analysis, comparing the two? I know they measured outputs to the two. I don't know if you have any comments to that, Brian.
No, not really. I mean, it was a pretty standard treatment of it. I mean, they're fairly small impacts. One has a little bit higher of a fiscal impact than the other. But I mean, I think as Mark explained pretty well, these aren't huge job generators. So, I think the way Mark described is probably the right way to think about this outside of the transaction. The food, vegetable industry here's big. So both fit, like from a fit perspective for a targeted cluster for us here. I think both would make sense from that perspective. But just looking at the economic impact analysis, there isn't a huge difference there, I don't believe.
Does anybody have any more questions or comments for Mr. Hanna? or anything else regarding these two topics?
One last question, Mark, and I'm sorry to keep asking questions, but if you were to look at it long term, who's going to stick around the longest?
Well, so one is more of a risk industry than the other, right? One person is going to invest, $6 million into this facility and hope that it works and hope that there's a need for what they want, right? One thing to note is that we have, we cross more produce than anyone in America, and there's no facility doing this here now. So it hasn't held back the produce industry from being very successful. So it's very possible that their need is not really needed. Cold storage is something that is needed, that will always be needed. And whether it's this person occupying this cold storage or someone else occupying it, cold storage will always be needed, at least for the next 10 years until Elon Musk sets something up on Mars. I believe that, the board should make a calculated decision. And we've set up both offers to be very calculated, which is why the first offer, Gateway America, my recommendation is to, in the first 30 days, answer all of those big risk questions. The cold storage is something that's very, the likelihood of them not moving forward, the likelihood of them not making improvements and succeeding is a very low risk. What we don't like is the $50,000 difference. So if we were to counter to them, say, if that is the board's decision to match this in order to move forward and all other terms stay the same, that's a counter. Or you move forward with Gateway and you ask that they answer all of those questions and approvals within the first 30 days of feasibility. If they can't meet that, we hope that someone else like Primo, if Primo's not available, then we will do our best to market the property to find another end user. Regardless of whether these two transactions work, we're very motivated to find an end user. And we're going to, somehow, some way.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any more questions or comments for Ms. Hannah? Thank you very much, Ms. Hannah. Great presentation.
Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing from you.
All right. I'd also like to, for the record, that Veronica did abstain from voting on agenda item H as well as G. Now I'll entertain a motion to move on to executive session. Roland, you're on mute.
So moved.
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your right hand. Aye. It is 6:43 p.m. and we will be entering executive session. It is 7:37 p.m. and I'll entertain a motion to re-enter open session.
Make a motion.
I second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye, raising your right hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It is still 7:37 p.m. and we're back in open session. I'll entertain a motion for denying agenda item F based on staff recommendation. Oh, sorry, I need a motion.
Move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye, raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion is denied based on staff recommendation. We took no further action in executive session. Do we have any other business to discuss?
No, there's no other required action. And just for the record, no action was taken during executive session.
Sorry, if that didn't come across, I had that for the record. All right. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signal by saying aye. Raising your right hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. I know it was a very long meeting, but I feel like we're getting better at this.
Yes.
Thank you.